Hi friends, welcome to A Wonderful Sheep. I'm so excited to share this January mid-month reading journal update video with you. I decided to do a mid-month video because I read a lot of books and documented making the spreads of them, and I didn't think I'd be able to do it all in one video at the end, so you get a mid-month review. Here I'm just doing some housekeeping in the front of my journal, filling in the series page and the goals page and also my January bookshelf. And I also printed out some book covers on sticker paper for the first time, so you get a little sneak peek at some of the books I either read or want to read or most likely will not get to because I am always too ambitious about them. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the spreads. Alright, getting into this first spread, it's actually not the first book of 2024, but I didn't film that first book, so I'll speak about that later. But this is This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousens. It's the second book I've read by this author, and I've loved both so far. I read the good part at the end of 2023, and that was just absolutely delightful. It was very much 13 going on 30 meets the family man, and the good part refers to the main character getting to jump forward in time in her life to when she's successful and has a family, and she sort of skips over the rough patch of the 20s of her life. But this book also plays with the themes of fate and what if. So the main character, Minnie Cooper, her name is Minnie Cooper because she just missed out on being the first baby born in London on January 1st, 1990, to another baby, Quinn, who ends up being the male lead in the book. So these two babies were born in the same hospital, just seconds apart from each other. And Minnie's always felt her life has been a little unlucky ever since she was born seconds too late. And so she also really doesn't like her birthday. But she ends up meeting Quinn 30 years later, and the fates intervene to bring them together. And even though she wants to dislike him at first, they start to fall in love, and it's really sweet. There was a mention of Sliding Doors, the movie, in this book, and that reminded me of what I like about Sophie Cousens' books is she plays around with the idea of fate and getting to explore these what if moments, and then eventually, realizing that there's no point in wondering what if, what you have is good, and to learn to appreciate what you have. And I'm placing owls on this spread because the owls were a major supporting character in the book. Instead of butterflies in your stomach, Minnie has these little fluttering owls that they have a mind of their own. They are so funny. They have such personality whenever she gets the butterflies, whenever she gets nervous around Quinn or she's feeling excited, the owls appear. So I really appreciated every time the owls came up, so I had to commemorate that in the spread. And here you see me fixing up a mistake. I didn't like my handwriting and the color marker I chose for the title, so I covered that right up. Tried to do something different, but did not work out, so I am stamping out the title instead with my teeny tiny wood block alphabet stamps. I also added some pie stickers because Minnie is a pastry chef. She has a pie company, and one of the questions that is asked in the book is, where do you want to be this time next year? And I thought that was a good question to add for myself, something I want to keep asking myself more in a self-help, self-improvement kind of way, but it's good to keep in mind. And the painting in the corner is Automat by Edward Hopper, and it comes up in the book, and I loved the context in which it came up, so I added that as well. Next up is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It is my first nonfiction of the year, which is in line with my goals to read more nonfiction in 2024, and I bet a lot of people picked this up at the beginning of the year. This was a reread for me. I had listened to the audio in 2020, but I'm glad I picked it back up this year to get a refresher on the very practical and actionable tips that he covers in the book. One of the big things is systems over goals, which I bet a lot of people already know by now, but instead of setting a specific goal, like I want to lose 10 pounds this year, you create a system like I get up every morning and walk 30 minutes every day to support that goal. And another concept that I really appreciated was creating like changes based on identity. So instead of thinking of yourself as I'm not an active person, I don't like to work out, change your mindset, change your view about your identity to be, I am an athlete, I love to work out. Like change the way you view yourself to support your journey to that goal or to support the new habits you want to make. And lastly, he also said something about cravings, which really stuck with me, or bad habits rather, that it's not that you want to do that bad habit, it's that you want to feel different than you do now. So that's a question that I've been constantly asking myself when I find myself craving something, or it lets me, take a moment to really evaluate if I really want that or not. All right, let's take a break from the cute upbeat music because this next book is kind of dark. As you can probably tell from the cover art, this is All of Us Villains by C.L. Herman and Amanda Foody. I picked this book up after I saw that Carrie Can Read had recommended it on Instagram, and I got the audiobook version. And if you're interested in this book, I might recommend you get the print version because for me, it was a little hard to follow at first. I tend to multitask when I'm listening to an audiobook. I usually put it on when I'm cleaning or doing chores or journaling. And so while my mind isn't like completely immersed in the other task, it's also not completely focused on the book. So it's a little hard to follow when it's fantasy, and it's definitely hard to follow when there's many points of view like there was in this book. So it took me a good while to kind of figure out who was who because there are several characters' points of view in this book. The story, I would describe it as magical Hunger Games in a sentence. Basically, it's set in this small town where once a generation, the blood moon rises, the sky turns red, and the children of 7 families have to compete to the death in a magical tournament. And the winner's family gets to control this thing called high magic at the end. And it's like a very valuable source of rare magic. And it's the only source of this magic. So these kids, teenagers, use spells and curses inside the tournament grounds to, fight to the death. So like I said, magical Hunger Games. It was interesting, like the world building was pretty interesting, a little confusing at first since I was listening to it on audio, but after a while I did understand what was going on. And for the decoration for this spread, first of all, I did just a half page because I knew I would be reading the sequel. And actually, at the time of this voiceover right now, I have finished the sequel, but I knew it was a duology, so I just decided to dedicate one page to both books. And then these circle stickers I chose are to represent the spell stones. In this world, the kids or people can cast spells with spell stones. And so I had these kind of cool watercolor illustrated circles stickers that I used to represent the spell stones. And that random pink blob is to represent the blood red sky, the red sky when the blood moon rises. Again, trying to work with what stationery I have. I don't really have a lot of dark stationery, so the border with the black washi is also like the closest I could get to like the dark tones of the book. And originally I was thinking I might try to draw the curse rings. But at the time of doing this spread, I think my brain was like, I don't have the creativity to try to imagine what the curse rings will look like. So I pulled out these stickers and sort of did an ode to the spell stones. But yeah, that was All of Us Villains. I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable listen, a little confusing on audio, but fun to listen to. And yeah, a little dark, very dark and brutal. Okay, guys, friends, countrymen, lend me your ears. If you read only one book from this video, let it be this book, or rather let it be the first book in this series. This is Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. It is the second book in the Aurelian cycle, and I adored this series. This series was so good. I just finished the third book in this trilogy this morning, literally in the wee hours of the morning. So I'm still riding off the high of like having finished such a good series, being sad that it's over, but glad that I was able to read it, and just, yeah, so good. I can't recommend it enough. And I guess to explain this book, I should briefly explain what the first book is about. And I think a good way, like an intriguing way to sell this book is to refer you to the author's answer on Goodreads on what inspired the first book, Fireborne. And she said, in a nutshell, it is the French Revolution, it was Plato's Republic, and it was the Blitz from World War II. And all three of those are definitely present in this series. Basically, it's a dragon riding book. The first book mainly takes place on the first island, where the main city is, Callipolis, and it's about two kids, teenagers, Annie and Lee, who were both orphaned during or because of this revolution that overthrew this highborn dragon riding class, and the People's Revolution overturned that ruling system and created a new, more democratic system, supposedly. And these two children grow up together, best friends, and they both test well to enter the dragon riding academy. But the circumstances of their birth make it so that they shouldn't be best friends, but they are. And there's sort of like a counter-revolutionary movement, and there's politics involved, and it gets really exciting. And then in the second book, the world expands, and there's battles, and Annie and Lee take leading roles in this new emerging world. So for the spread, I wanted to draw in the fantasy map of this world, and then I had this grand vision in my brain, which I didn't quite end up fulfilling. But in this world, the new post-revolutionary world, people, when they're kids, they test into different classes, and they wear bracelets on their wrists to represent which class they are. And the very few who test both silver and gold have wrist bracelets that are intertwined with the two metals, and they can become guardians, the dragon riders in this new world. So that's what these random circlets of metallic colors are. I was excited to experiment with my watercolors and do sort of a more artistic type spread. Unfortunately, my skills did not live up to recreate the vision that was in my brain, and I didn't actually end up loving the spread in and of itself, but I'm proud of myself for trying new techniques and methods and trying to watercolor. Even though the spread didn't quite turn out as I wanted it to, I'm glad that I still tried it, and that doesn't diminish how much I love this book, and I still have a chance, not to put pressure on myself, but I still have a chance to experiment more and maybe do a spread that I like better for the third book. But yeah, I think it was hard because the cover is clearly black, green, and blue, and then I had already done this base background of metallic colors, so I didn't really know how to tie it all together. Later on, I add blue ink shadows to the metallic wristlets, and I don't know if that helps or not, but it's fine. I'm spreading my creative wings with this journal, and I added some stickers from Daiso. This was a pack that's meant for decorating top loaders, and I ended up using them in my book journal. And there's a great quote from Flamefall that made me it hit me in the heart. Tonight, I'm full of confidence like a dragon riding a gale. I am done letting these tendrils of shame tie me to the ground. No shadow is so great that it doesn't shrink when viewed from the air. So yeah, like I said, I can't recommend this highly enough. If you liked Fourth Wing, read it. If you didn't like Fourth Wing, read it. It was one of the best series I've read in a long time. All right, we are coming up to the last two books in this video. They're both nonfiction and both self-help, and side by side, the titles are kind of interestingly contrasting, but also complementary. You'll see at the end of the video what I mean. But this book is The Courage to be Disliked, the Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness. It's by Ichiro, Kishimi, and Fumitake Koga. So it's a book in Japanese that was translated into English. And apparently it was a bestseller. I remember hearing about it years ago. I think I tried to start it and then I never got very far into it. I almost didn't finish this book either because towards the middle, I got a little tired of the format of the book. It's like a conversation between a young man and an older philosopher, and the young man keeps asking the older man like questions and like trying to debate and argue about meaning of life and like happiness and life's questions, and the older man is very patient with him. But it's based on this Adlerian philosophy, which I had never heard of. I don't know much about psychology, but I think the gist of it is, and I'm speaking with a caveat that I'm not sure that I really absorbed everything I was supposed to from this book, but I think one of the themes was like letting go of the past, like not blaming the past or your life's circumstances for your present. Also recognizing that like a lot of the reality you've built around yourself is because of what you choose to believe, like there are like secretly things you believe about yourself, or things you, because of fear or sense of insecurity, you have limited your life and you like build up these limitations for yourself. Yes, like I said, don't feel very qualified to summarize this book, but there were a lot of highlights that I made, and I liked some of the comparisons in the book, like comparing life to a dance. Like life is just a series of moments. It's like a dance, and when you're dancing, the point isn't to like get to an objective, to achieve something. You're just like in the moment dancing. And the book also made this comparison of like, if you're always so focused on like either the past or the future, it's like shining a spotlight on the audience when you're on stage, and you're not able to be present in the moment because all you can see is what the spotlight is shining on the audience. So I guess the point is to shine the spotlight on the present in what is here and now, which is good advice. And so I took my watercolors and I tried to recreate the cover art, which again doesn't look that great, but when you squint and look from afar, it's not too bad. This book, like I said, was a little bit hard to get through towards the end, but the beginning was like kind of innovative and fresh, and I'm glad I finished to the end, but the middle was a little bit rough. Finally, we have Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. And I found out about this book through Twitter, and I picked up the audiobook. It's hard for me to say whether I recommend it or not, because while I did gain some really helpful methods, like doable, practical methods to work on loving myself, there was also a lot of like personal memoir type accounts that I found a little bit distracting from what I wanted to get out of this book. One of the Goodreads reviews of it said like it kind of reads like an unfiltered, unedited journal entry, and I did find that those parts kind of distracting. And in terms of like content or trigger warnings, he does talk about suicidal thoughts and also his experience with a really hard breakup. So that might be something that you might want to know before you pick it up. But yeah, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, if that's the right phrase. Like, I'm glad I sifted through those parts that were a little bit like, distracting, because he does share some really practical, actionable methods to, view yourself better and to love yourself. The first one, the easiest one, is the mental loop, where you just repeat to yourself, I love myself, I love myself. And he recommends like breathe in and think that, and then breathe out and let whatever else go. And he also recommends like a meditation practice that you can do with that, which is very good. And I've been trying to implement that more. He's very much like all in or nothing, and that's not my personality or style, but I've been trying to apply what I can. And another good question that he shared was, if I love myself truly and deeply, would I allow myself to experience this? So that's like a good question to constantly ask yourself when you're finding yourself in a negative or unhelpful situation. But yeah, not sure how to review this. I'm glad I read it. I would like to implement the things I learned from it, but there were some distracting elements. And that wraps up the journal spreads portion of this mid-month journal update video. I'm just adding some stickers to represent the books I've finished and added to the journal. The gold and silver overlap stickers are representing Flamefall, and I'll add a dancing character for the courage to be disliked, and a heart for love yourself, like your life depends on it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm still trying to figure out how to best share about the books I read and share journaling videos and get better at doing reviews, because this is all very new for me and I'm learning what will work best. But thank you for watching. I hope you stay safe and well, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.